gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Tapped In. It's your boy Zaid, and I'm joined with Sina and Ayub. And today we have a very special guest, someone who represents culture, leadership, and who's making a lot of noise and represents the voice of a lot of young people. He's an artist, he's a community person, and a great man who does a lot of great things.
Man of many trades.
A man of many trades, as Sino says. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we have Titan in the house tonight.
Welcome.
Myself as well. Nah, bro, it's a blessing to be here, man. I love your platform and what you guys stand for. So
I appreciate you,
happy
bro.
to be here.
Appreciate you, bro. We have a range of questions prepared, bro. But before we get into it, I always like to ask the guest, how you feeling today, brother?
I'm feeling good, man. Like I think we were able to have kind of conversations before this started. Today was an interesting day. I feel like most days are. Kind of went across the city, crisis after crisis, spending time with different spaces, youth spaces. It was a good day, you know what I mean? But I'm feeling blessed. I'm alive, can't complain. My family's well. Yeah, good place.
As you used to say, young, black, and handsome, true?
I'm black, that's alive and handsome.
That's the one, bro.
That's it, bro. Welcome to the show, bro. It's an absolute honor. So for the people that don't know who Titan is, man, what can you tell us a little bit of an intro of who Titan is?
Yeah, I kind of work in three spaces. At the foremost of anything, just a community member at the end of the day. Someone that grew up in Melbourne, cares deeply about community because it's our people, my people. That's not based on like race or anything, but literally like just who we grew up with. So that's at the heart of everything I do. But I work in three spaces. So I work in the community space. A lot of that's advocacy, support, capacity development, youth, anything that's like supportive of community is one space. I work in the art space, so around music, photography, videography, anything to be able to tell our stories and the skill sets around that. And then I work in the government space, which is like newer. So that's around like really understanding how government works and how it can be conserve community and the needs that are there and how you can make change. So those three areas is where I'd say I'd fit into.
A man of many hats.
Yeah.
What, Titan, what influenced you to get into this space?
You know what's interesting? I think a lot of things have influenced me on the journey, right? And a lot of that has been like experiences. It's been like things that have happened. But I wouldn't say that like it was a day where I'm like, oh, I'm going to be in this space. I think I kind of fell into it. Like I grew up in this space. I grew up with like youth workers and workers in general. Like you just know how the migration process is. I came here as like a 5-year-old going through like kind of like the refugee experience with like my grandma and the family, my family. And we had workers, I guess, for my entire life, like from United Nations workers when I was born, all the way to like arriving here, settlement workers within that space, language, all that stuff as well, to getting older, where you got like youth workers, police contact, stuff like that as well, people try to engage you, to then growing up in programs, starting to facilitate programs around what those needs are. But I'd say like the thing that kind of influenced me to be in this space is my community kind of held me. Like in all of those aspects, I had something that I needed, you know what I mean? Or my grandma had something that was needed. And it was other people that came to support, either people that were paid to do it or a community that had to like figure out something. So I wouldn't be here without community. So because I got all that support, I was kind of raised in that and groomed thinking that that's the way to kind of behave. So I don't think I made a decision. I feel like it's just something that I grew up in, and I've got like an earnest of responsibility to continue. And then throughout all that time, there's been like multiple different incidences that have occurred, from like small things around positive stuff, around helping young people get into first jobs and stuff like that as well. First, like learning how to drive, all these things that I struggled with, all of that helps. And then there's been like crisis situations where you've seen people lose people, families lose young people and stuff as well, where I'm like, oh, there's a need for it. But yeah, that kind of wraps up why I grew up in this space, and I feel like there's an earnest responsibility to continue to give back.
And there's so many ways you can give back too, but it's obviously sharing the story that you have, you know, because a lot of people would relate to the story first and foremost, but then also the wisdom that you have and the information that you can pass on to people from the things you've experienced along the years, you know. I believe that, you know, anyone who goes through that kind of journey has a bit of a phase where they're trying to figure out their identity, you know. Sometimes, you know, you hold a certain identity or you're also adapting an identity as you grow up, you know. Did you ever have a moment where you kind of had inconsistencies, or you just didn't really kind of know who you were as a person?
100%, man. I feel like I've had a lot of those moments. I think I have those moments now, like, to be honest with you, in different ways. Like, you're always kind of growing. I think now it's in more of a positive light because I've had so much, like, development and support and resources around me now where it looks different in terms of what that development looks like and that change of identity. But I think as a young person, like, when I was small, like I said before, I grew up with my grandma. So when we came here, it wasn't mom, dad. It wasn't that type of situation. It was grandma, whatever comes with that kind of, like, house and things that I'm missing and stuff like that as well. But being a kid that, like, is trying to figure out identity, going to schools in Australia, especially back then. Australia's different now. Like, post 2014, 2012, like, the kids that were born there, they've got their own challenges, but, like, they've got community, right, in a sense. And we always had before, but they've got acceptance to some degree where the things that don't accept them, you can, like, kind of, you're going to experience it, which sucks, but there's ways to kind of avoid it, and you have things you can fall into that's your community. Whereas when I was growing up, I was in trouble a lot. I was in fights a lot, racism, all that type of stuff as a kid of trying to figure out who you are, you know what I mean? And not always in a household that's able to kind of speak words to, like, what your experiences were, you know what I mean? And to be fair, completely, my grandma's got a whole different understanding of what life is and what community is and stuff like that as well. So there's certain things that don't make sense for her. I had a lot of identity development between the ages of probably, like, very early on, like 7 all the way to, like, maybe 14, 15 of, like, trying to figure out who I was and what myself was from just culturally. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, I'm African Australian. That's a new thing, like, that we're developing. So me, my Somalian brother, my Ethiopian brother, all this other stuff, we're the same. We're going through this experience. We've got a shared identity, right? And then probably older, when I was, like, 12 and stuff like that as well, like, jumping off the porch, and there's all this other stuff that kind of happens of, like, who's my identity in terms of what I'm telling the world and what I'm trying to do to protect myself. So I've definitely, bro, the entire journey has been some level of identity crisis and figuring it out, you know what I mean? I feel like it's time to land now.
And what conversations did you have with, grandmother about survival that other Australian kids just won't understand?
Man, I don't even know if it's conversations, cuz. I don't know if it's a conversation.
It's more
one-sided
instruction,
conversation.
It's one-sided, yeah.
Yeah, it's one-sided, man. I had to learn how to communicate, bro,
Yeah.
to be real with you. I think I learned acceptance of perspective from her and that generation of understanding why they thought a certain type of way. For me, it kind of came through in primary. I think a lot of it was, first and foremost, I had, like, a lot of anger as a kid. Right, like, I didn't have my mom, I didn't have my dad, I didn't understand why. Went through this whole process. You got all these workers around you. You got, like, people that are overly whatever, you're getting picked up, random stuff, trying to take you to get ice cream and all this other stuff because they think you need. You know what I mean?
Just overwhelming.
Experiment,
You're an experiment, you know.
Yeah, man, I hear that, bro.
And that's been the entire time. I had a lot of anger as a kid, a lot of anger, bro. Like, a lot. But when I went to school, a lot of it was just, like, racism type stuff, and I wouldn't kind of go for it. Like, so, like, for example, people making fun of, like, your skin. Dark skin is cool now. You know what I mean?
Back then it wasn't.
It was not cool back then.
Yeah.
Like, in Vietnamese culture, people didn't understand it. People said stupid things all the time, you know what I mean? And if you were the different kid in that class and stuff like that as well, you have to kind of hold that. Now you've got more people. So in primary school, I went to a primary school that wasn't culturally there yet with teachers that weren't culturally there, where the N-word was said. And me, I didn't know how to, like, communicate. So I'd fight, you know what I mean? I'd throw hands.
If you react, you're labeled as troubled.
And then now you're in the principal's office. You're going through the suspension stuff. You're coming from a family that's not, grandma's not trying to hear any of that, you know what I mean? That's not, like, what we were kind of built up on. It's very different. So I had, like, those kind of challenges there in that space as well. So I wouldn't say it was really communication. I learned how to kind of, like, understand perspective. So first and foremost, I was taught, I can't keep on doing this because I keep getting suspended. You know what I mean? Like, this person's parents are going to come into the room. They're going to say, oh, my son is this. I'm not going to have anyone come to my room, you know what I mean, when you're there with the principal. You're going to be held with the consequences. You need to stay with it. You're the one that has, like, the longer suspension or whatever that looks like. And then you've got to explain it to family that's always going to take the side of the teacher because culturally, like, the teacher's got a different role than what Australia kind of looks like. So for me, I had to learn, hey, bro, this is, like, the 17th time you've done this. Same consequences here. You probably need to switch your thinking. So I think it was more that than any conversation.
And at that moment, how did you navigate anger? Because I feel like you still didn't stop. It still continued. But you said you wanted to stop consequences in terms of being suspended. So what did you do? What did it look like?
I didn't do anything productive, man. It wasn't like it was nothing productive because like I kept on getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Like once you get into like those type of situations, you get labeled a certain type of thing. Like early on, people don't understand. Like people don't care to, especially young people. Kids are like mean. You know what I mean, like within the nature of it, it's like a thing. It's not something where later on we can look into it and we can be like, oh, we've got some compassion around this person might have gone through a certain experience. Kids are not doing that. They're like, yo, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
You know, this guy keeps getting suspended, or this guy keeps on doing this, or this guy's angry. And that comes with like a certain reputation that's there that makes it harder and harder that you can fall into and get trapped into. I don't think that there's anything productive at an early age I was doing. It was literally, there's only so many times you can knock your head onto like a hard wall, right? Before you go, yo, I'm hurting myself more than anybody else because I'm the one that has to deal with this, you know what I mean? And you're not explaining. Like what I do is like I'd feel justified. Like I wasn't into like bullying or anything like that as well, so it's never been like me in terms of antagonizing situations. I feel like, yo, this person said this person's being funny with what they're saying the N-word, all this other stuff as well. I'm in this, I feel like I need to protect myself, but I wasn't communicating. I was straight to like what I had learned, you know what I mean, in terms of what's effective, which is just fight about it. Yo, one-on-one. Yo, you disrespecting me, one-on-one.
Let's get it, yeah.
Because like now you're suspended, boo-boo the fool. Like, you know what I mean? You're missing out on lunch, you're missing out on recess, everyone else is kind of there. And there's only so many times you can go through that and have people's perspectives change on, because you know how people look at you, right? And they don't understand the full side of the picture. Not only people outside, but family as well. Where they're like, yo, this kid is a troublemaker. This is a problem child. And that's at some point eats away at you where you go, yo, there's something that the world is not fair. I'm going through all these other stuff as well, but how I'm engaging in it is not productive for me. So I had to kind of learn that. And it took like multiple years to kind of learn that and stuff like that as well, where it's like, instead of like raging out and just hitting this kid, let me find a way to communicate. Let me be smarter with how that is, and that worked better for me. So that's what happened, I guess.
You know, it's a real thing that you speak on, and a lot of the experience that you went through is very, very real, you know?
Yeah.
And I think people in here and also people at home watching are going to be relating to a lot of the points you're dropping, you know? But one thing about myself is I always try to find the positive or the beauty in hardship or in struggle, you know? And I think what stands out after listening to what you've been saying is you were forced to grow up a little bit faster than everybody else. You know what I mean? And in some ways, obviously, that's got nothing to do with what we can control. And at the time, it's probably the worst times of your life, you know, trying to navigate those kind of times that you're in. But then now when you look back at it and seeing what you do now for other people and the position that you hold, do you ever look at it and say, you know, like as much as I hate what happened to me or the processes that I went through, it kind of shaped into who I, in a good way, you get me? Like it kind of, it progressed you, you know, advanced you.
I wouldn't even say I hate it, bro, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, it's like, bro, everyone has their own thing that they go through. You know what I mean? And there's people like with whatever you're going through, you can find someone that's going through something that you think is worse. You know what I mean? Within that, stuff like that as well. I still have my grandma. I like loving my house in terms of what that looked like. A lot of my homies didn't. You know what I mean? My cousins didn't. Other people didn't. I wouldn't really say I hated what that looked like. I think it was like a prerequisite to my story of how, because you had those early experiences early on. By the time I was 14, right, I had a very different perspective on life, right, that allowed me to take up opportunities in a really good way. You couldn't influence me to do things as a 14-year-old, right? So things happened to me early on. I jumped off the porch much earlier on than everybody else. So by the time people were 13, 14, and things in the neighborhood were starting to happen, like I'm like, yo, cuz I've kind of been able to get through all of this without the consequences of it because I was too young, you know what I mean, to actually deal with the consequences. Whereas people I'm not trying to hear anything from no older person at this point around, yo, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, in terms of negative stuff, because I'm like, yo, I've had these experiences outside, I've already been in trouble, I've already had all this stuff early on, I've been picked up, they've tried to make me go through programs, all this other stuff. But what it meant is I didn't get any consequences for real, right? I lived a consequence-free life, too young to actually deal with it. So by the time I was 14, I think it was really lucky for me, because it gave me this perspective of, in the neighborhood at that time, like I was able to avoid a lot of BS, right? Where other people got caught up in that BS because they got out much older. So the things that I got into trouble as a youngin' for and didn't have consequences for, they were facing those consequences as 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. And those have like much longer, lifelong impacts. Whereas at 14, I'd gone to like perspective change around what I wanted for myself and how I viewed myself and identity and shame and all those different things where I'd gone through it. So I was able to do really, really well where like my age mates at that time, later on stuff happened for them. It was much harder in terms of what they had to deal with and the consequences were much harsher for them. So for me, it was a blessing, bro. I'm very, very lucky, I think.
100%. And it goes to the maturity aspect, you know? Like you went through all of that, you had to mature at a very early age. Like you said, if you didn't get those life experiences, you probably would have fell into, something much, dire or like, much bigger. But the thing is, I think a lot of people, and like, this is why I resonate with you, and I feel like a lot of people resonate with you. It's like growing up here, you have those two lifestyles where at home, you're a certain person, you know what I mean? And then you leave the household and then you're outside in school or whatever, and then you have this other personality, you know? And I feel like that's when majority of us get that identity crisis, where it's like we probably want to fit in over here, and then we want to fit in over there. And then sometimes we might do a bit too much to just, fit in. And that's where, most of the issues come from. And like most of us, again, being the first Australian, like you said, African Australian, growing up, it's like, this is all foreign, You can't go back home to your grandmother and tell her these issues. She might look at you like, bro, what issues is this,
Nah, bro.
We fled a war, what issues are you talking about? This is non-issues, but it is issues, at the same time. But yeah, so let's get a little bit into your music career and the music journey. So when did that begin for you? Was that a therapy for you, or was it like something you're just passionate about?
It's a great question, bro. I think when I was probably like 11, I'd say. So when we got to Australia, I was in like the east, like far east. Like this is when pseudos were in Ringwood. You know what I mean? Like the older guys and like the people that came here much, much older and they had like a different struggle.
How old were you?
I was like 5, bro. Like I was young. But we were in the east for like a couple of years, going to like house to house, like commission housing and stuff as well, moving around there. But a lot of community support where people were there. Things were like calm at that point. When I moved to St Albans, like I was probably like 8 maybe, whatever that looks like. Somewhere between 7 to like 9, perhaps. Closer on the 7 part. Like I was saying, all of this stuff that was happening like outside, like I was outside a lot, like just in community, hooping, like kicking it with everyone that was just on the block and stuff as well. St Albans, everybody lived there at that time before everybody moved and was pushed out. It was like Sunshine, St Albans, Braybrook type stuff as well. Or a lot of people lived in like Fitzroy and in Yarra locally. But I was like deep in community at that point, right? The block was like cousins left and right, people that weren't cousins but were family regardless, you know what I mean? So I was getting into a lot of trouble, but because I was too young, we were kicking with the older boys and they would get into like the actual trouble in terms of what that happens off. We'd get dropped off somewhere else, like, yo, try to get into a program. So they tried everything, like Longhorns, you know what I mean? I remember when Longhorns were like early on and stuff as well. Like I didn't continue in it, it just didn't work for me. But I got dropped off and
request,
yeah, I got dropped off at Rick Ross. Like maybe this will work. You know what I mean? Or yo, the chocolate stuff and yo, ice cream and give him a mentor, you know what I mean?
Not the ice creams again, bro.
Yeah, man, like that stuff happened. But one day, bro, around that time, and for me, like there's like a slow kind of realization of like, cause like what I actually want for myself, you know what I mean? Cause like what I actually want to get to. One day I had I was at St Albans Secondary, so this was probably like so I got into music in terms of writing. I'd always liked poetry specifically, because in year 3 I had like a teacher that like, you know what I mean, that cared. I was getting into trouble that early. Yeah, and they were like sending me to like anger management school, all this other stuff. But I had a teacher that was like really impactful. Her name was Mrs. A, right, early on, and she taught me just poems, like very, very basic, kind of like stanzas and stuff like that as well. And I like to like write, and just be in my own kind of zone, you know what I mean, go off, you know what I mean, something happens, let me just chill, write. But I never knew what I was doing. I was like, yo, this is just like poetry and stuff that I like. Until like later on, when like probably like year 7, the first year in year 7, I got into trouble. And it was like, I was in the what are they called? The coordinator's office. Right, and it was for some BS. Like this coordinator just didn't like me and stuff like that as well. And in that office, while I was getting this lecture, I knew I was gonna get suspended. I knew I was gonna go home. And again, you're going back to grandma, like Aja and all this other stuff, and it's just this disappointment stuff. You're just not trying to deal with it. There was like a poster that was in a room, and it said Rap 3021, right? And it was on Alfreda Street. It was the same day, coincidentally. You know what I mean? I went there just to like avoid going home. Avoid getting into like that argument, see if my grandma can fall asleep by the time I get home, jump the fence, deal with this in the morning, she'll be less angry.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Always works.
So I kicked it in the area, like just on a 30th Street, just from the library, play games, you know what I mean? Go hoop for a bit, stuff as well. But then it gets dark and all your friends kind of go home at that time and stuff as well. I'm like, yo, my grandma's definitely not asleep at this point. And I remember, yo, there's this program happening tonight, right? To me, I'm like, yo, it's better than just kicking it outside and it's dark and stuff like that as well. Let me go to that place. They'll probably have, like, you know, food, something to eat. I cared nothing about the music. Couldn't give two anythings, you know what I mean? But I went into that space just to, like, kick it for, like, another hour before I went home. And I met this guy named Mo. No, actually, I met Khalid. So they're in the same, like, kind of rap group.
Was it Dyfrix?
The Africs.
Oh, the guys.
I met Khalid.
Shout out to them, man.
Yeah.
I met Khalid, bro.
Yeah.
And Khalid was the guest kind of, like, presenter on that day for that Rap 302 program that was run by, like, Good Shepherd at that time because they had the contract for youth services in that area. And Khalid, I'm like, yo, this is a brother, you know what I mean? Like, cool, there's a brother in here. Started talking about his experiences. Brisky's talking about, yo, he toured. What you mean he toured, bro? What you mean? Like, toured
the
what?
ethics was massive,
Yeah, because this guy went to other parts of the world and was doing this music stuff. Said he's a rapper. To me, it just blew my mind, right? He said he's from Footscray.
What's going on here?
What are you talking about, bro? What do you mean you touring you from Footscray? Long story short, he got, first of all, I was impressed. I was like, yo, like, this guy's doing something that's actually productive in his life. And that's, like, one of the first people I saw do anything productive in their life, right? Like, yo, this guy, like, is like me, looks like me and stuff as well. And speaking normally, it's not this extra weird type of way of, like, youth work. And I was just really interested. And he's like, yo, like, this is why, like, I make music. He told me, like, a basic kind of, like, song structure. But it was the same stuff I was doing with my poetry stuff, right? And that's it. That's all. He just showed me that. Man, I took that home that entire summer, snuck into my brother's room, trying to get onto, like, his computer, figured out the password, hacked it. You know what I mean? When he dipped, sneak into his room, hack the password, go on YouTube, make beats, write. I started taking my writing book with me everywhere I went. So I was hooping, I was writing. You know what I mean? I was outside, I was writing. I was finishing school, I was writing. I was in class, I was writing. You know what I mean? And I really liked it. It was something that was like, that was cool for me. It wasn't about becoming a rapper or anything like that and stuff as well. I could care less about what that was. I just enjoyed what this process was. I went back to that Rap 302 program, right? I was like, yo, I got all these raps within that space. They had, like, performance opportunities and stuff like that that were kind of there. That was, like, the first program that actually connected to me. I'm like, oh, this is cool, bro. These are people that look like me, right? I get to be myself in this space. I get to write. I can create stuff, bring it back, and get some level of validation, which I didn't have. You know what I mean? At a very early age where someone's like, yo, this is cool. You're doing something good. You're actually, like, something that's productive for the world. Like, this is impressive. Man, that's all I needed, cuz. Like, I never had that in, like, a real way, right? So I'd come back to that program, and I started performing. I started going to them to different places. They will pay me to. So I'm like, I'm getting money, right? Legally, there's nothing, like, weird. There's no, yo, get rich quick scheme. There's no random, yo, we're going to do this and do this and do this and do this type stuff as well. Straightforward. Youth workers, here's some money, right, for the raps that you're doing. Here's an opportunity to travel across Melbourne to different places. And that's what opened up the pathway for me to meet all these different people, meet all these cultures. I was off the block, right, and I was hearing different perspectives. So I started being able to evaluate my life compared to what the neighborhood was telling me and stuff as well, and see what was more beneficial for myself. That's the thing that got me into music, and I always continued. Like, to this day, I write. I don't release as much. I started releasing when I was, like, probably, like, 15, around with, like, my homies. I got a lot of, like, attention for it, which, again, was good, positive reassurance. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing something productive. But yeah, I've always written from that point onwards, and it's been something dear to me.
I remember the Facebook days I used to see, you know, dropping bars and stuff. This was way before even, like, drill was a thing. This was way before anything, you know. And I relate to you in some ways in the sense that even when you don't release stuff, I don't know what it is. I think it's the expression, or just to test your craft on how you can play with words, you know. But something about it that's like, it's enjoying, you know.
It's also a release.
Yeah. Expression, yeah, for sure. And then just going back to the other part of when you start performing, there's a major key that happens when you, even if it's, I'm guessing you weren't making the craziest amounts of money, but it's something about learning the reward system, and it's completely legitimized, and you're doing something that you love. And I think that's something that, to be honest, even now in the working space that you're in, something that needs to be revisited, you know? It's about incentives towards things that young people like or they want to do to validate, as you said, you know, who they are, what they do, and some of their aspirations, And especially, just going back to the other point, when you're young and you find somewhere that validates you and who you are as a person, bro, it is one of the best things, And that's why I feel like even all this time now, you still remember that very fondly, The people that validated you, that welcomed you in those kind of spaces, So when I reflect on that, I think, man, like how important it is to have, when you say community, there's people, obviously, the people that you relate to and relate with, but it's also that people who validate you, that make you feel like, that you're a part of something, and they bring you in and put you on, stuff like that. So it's crazy to hear, man,
And then just on that, bro, that's what stood out to me the most as well, that validation piece, And if you actually look at it, like generally, like sometimes you even fall into a bad path because you're getting validation from that place,
100%.
And that's the most important thing. It's like, as when you're growing up, especially, the peer pressure, that's why it's a big thing for, the young generation, is because if you're at home not feeling validation and you're not getting that from school, where you're being labeled as, the troubled kid, the this, that, whatever it is, all these other names that just doesn't resonate or sit right with you, wherever you get, the next place that you get that validation from, most likely is a place where you're going to actually go and explore, and that's the most like scariest part. And that's what stood out to me, where you said that feeling or getting that validation from that spot, was really important for you and was really good to actually keep you steadfast, but that's I was just looking at that right now, and the validation part is really, really important, man.
What about with the beats? Be honest, were you ever doing the YouTube and going to your favorite rapper and then writing type beats and then just jacking it from YouTube and it's going hard?
The thing about music is culture as well. So hip hop, the other cool thing about that program is it taught me about hip hop, like for real, like not just like. So I think sometimes you can get caught into music by like just hearing it, and you get a perspective of what it's supposed to be by the artist that's there, whatever artist that is, who your friends kind of like. This program allowed me to get like some education in hip hop, where they were telling me about the Bronx, how it kind of started, how hip hop was used, the community element of it. So community was always a part of hip hop for me, but then what that looked like, right? So my perspective was very, very different. But yeah, 100%. I was going on YouTube and just finding beats and rapping. But it helped me also find community, because I found other people that were interested in raps, you know what I mean? That Rap 302 program, when I moved to Tanit, right, like I graduated in that program, so I started coming to the city, where they had like the kind of like Dig Deep program that was there, and I met all these different people, right? But it gave me something to do where I was able to leave all the time, and community was at it. And I was able to fall into that as well, where creativity, like for example, even like stuff like this of having podcasts and having places to speak, right? That's not just super clinical, right? Because you might have statutory involvement, so you've got like legal involvement in something, if it's child protection, if it's justice, if it's whatever else, where the system finds you, and then it forces you to have like conversations a particular way. But it's very clinical. It's not really community based. For me, the hip hop stuff, and it doesn't need to be hip hop. It can be photography for some other people. It could be sport for certain people. It gave me a space to be able to figure that out and express myself and have supportive stuff around me. I think it was very, very important, bro. Like I fell into all of that, you know what I mean? Like real rap, what that means, and it's Biggie, it's this, it's that. Like, all through the phases, like the backpack rap, of what that looks like, all the way to like now, just loving music and loving not even just music, bro, expression.
Yeah, you know art, yeah.
Yeah, just art. And that helped my other homies as well, because we're doing stuff like podcasts, like when we were young. Like, we're like, yo, let's go do this. Yo, let's go take photos. You know what I mean? Which is different. I would have never in my life, right, been like, yo, let's just go take photos, right? If I just stayed in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Never. Like, what are you doing, bro? What do you mean taking photos? I'm not trying to hear that.
Big time, yeah.
It's the people that I met where I'm like, oh, yo, I met a photographer. This is pretty cool. You know what I mean? If I'm not judging, if I'm not whatever else, like, I see how much passion is behind that. I met someone that's a writer. I met someone that's trying to become a producer. I met someone that has dreams. You know what I mean? Like ambition, not just, yo, I've got ambition for the block. I'm trying to stack up. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out of like the crab in the bucket kind of like mentality and stuff as well. But they just had dreams because they had dreams. You know what I mean? So it kind of helped me be able to come back to the neighborhood and find like-minded people, and create like a safe space for us to then be like, yo, hey, cuz let's go do some radio stuff. Let's go to Sin. What's Sin? Nah, bro, I heard about it.
That 90.7, yeah?
You know what I mean?
That's cold.
These Kawajas were talking about it. Sin thing. You know what I mean? But come back to the neighborhood and be like, yo, bro, it's free. What do you mean it's free? Like, oh, you just got to go. You just got to sign up, do the thing for it, and you're able to like do radio. Nah, we did it. Yo, let's go on road trips. Bro, like it seems like small things, cause it's things I would have never ever in my life did if I didn't have exposure to different opinions, different point of views, different people. You know what I mean? And that allowed me to come back to the neighborhood and have this conversation with my friends and also put them onto stuff and create this space. So I'm telling you, bro, we missed out on so much BS. Of course, we got caught up in the BS as well, just because it's neighborhood politics and we're from where we're from. But we had like all of these like avenues of being able to evaluate your life and compare your life to different things. Like, what do you mean? Like, just stay in the neighborhood the entire time? No, I want to go to Yanks. I want to go here. I want to go there. As soon as we got a car, it wasn't like, yo, let's get a car. And like now we're able to move around the city more to like figure this stuff out. I understand that as well, but it's like, oh, yo, cuz we can actually go further. Like we can go see these different things, and that was so important for me, bro. And I really, that's again, it's why I want to get into this youth work space, to be able to have like similar experiences for young people. Like these camps matter. You know what I mean? And the more of us that have gone through like life over here, right? And whatever that looks like, just people that are relatable, that are able to come back into the space and give back. Not everyone has to be a youth worker within this stuff as well, but everyone's community. You know what I mean? And as soon as we actually start respecting what that means, right? Because I wouldn't be here without community, right? You realize that things are bigger than just yourself. You know what I mean? When you guys do this podcast, right, you guys have a vision for what you're trying to do, but you're bringing along all these other people. Some of them that are going to comment, others are never going to say anything, but are going to take perspectives from it. You're adding to community with what that looks like, and it's so important, bro. Like it's
That's real, man. That's real. And you know, just when you say like about having, you know, community around, a lot of the time, like you said now, you didn't say youth worker is what you needed to get where you are today. You said community, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes the people who aren't even in a working position will have the most impact, you know? And having exposure to different environments, different opinions, like what we spoke about earlier, you know?
Yeah.
Not every room you walk in, you're going to be in agreement with everybody in there. People will say things, you're like, bro, what is this guy saying, you know? But at the same time, it's learning to accept or to respect the perspectives, you know? And then having exposure to an environment or a place you haven't been to or you're not used to, you know?
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you just now, when you said people like us who sort of have that understanding, you know, nowadays you hear a lot about our lived experience, you know, as people who kind of speak to young people to get messages across and to share wisdom and stuff. But for those who don't know, Titan was recently in the US, right? And from what I've seen, you know, you did a lot of traveling, you did a lot of information gaining, if you like. And I want to just sort of unpack that a little bit, what you were there for, what you learnt. And then if you can, just tie it back to what we were speaking about earlier around, you know, I'll let you say about credible messenger. Yeah,
100%, my brother. I've had 2 opportunities to leave Australia so far. The first opportunity I had came through networking and stuff like this as well, and growing up in the space. It was like supported by Foundation House. There's an opportunity to go to Geneva, right? That's the first time I've left Australia.
That's hectic.
Right? As not a refugee, as you're just leaving Australia because, you know what I mean?
Normally it's Bali or something, but you know, straight to Geneva, guys.
Straight to Geneva. Yeah.
Nah, bro, but I start with that because both of those opportunities changed my perspective significantly, right? And I'll get to the New York one right now, like soon. The first Geneva opportunity, right, when I left, showed me like other aspects of the world. I was able to speak to people that were from Spain, you know what I mean? I was able to speak to people from Portugal. I met a student from Portugal.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That was also at that Geneva convention, like kind of conference, and was able to kind of hear my migration journey from what that looked like in different, because it could have gone any type of way. My grandma did not know that Australia was Australia. America, Australia, Canada, whatever.
It's all the same.
You know what I mean? London, wherever we land there. You know what I mean? We just happened to land in Australia, right? But I met people. I remember all of the history before, the anger, the street stuff that starts to happen, just off the porch early, all that stuff as well. You've got all of this built up stuff around who you think you are, identity, as well as crisis, right? Like everything's a crisis every day. I'm like, yo, bro, I'm trying to help out the broski. Yo, there's drama happening in the area. I'm trying to negotiate it. I'm trying to have this. I'm trying to have that. All of this stuff where I'm like, there's so much important work to do, right? Which it is definitely important work to do. And at that point, I'd had like heartbreaking situations happen, like with loss and stuff like that as well. So I was very much focused in the work of like, man, this is do or die, because it really is do or die, right? And I was a little bit of like a downside of like where I was in my life in terms of how I was expecting, like how I was viewing it in terms of like, yo, is there any worth in doing all this stuff as well, where this kid just got locked up again, or this just happened again, or this auntie just lost a kid, you know what I mean? And what's the point of what we're doing in terms of these programs if they're not connecting? That's where I was kind of at. Also with hope, because I also got to see both. But I was very at a point of like crossroads. When I went to Geneva for the first time, it gave me perspective on the world, where people were coming to us and saying, Australia is so far ahead, right, in terms of these types of programs and supports that people got. And they weren't lying. We are within that space, right? I got to hear about what Portugal was like. I got to hear about what Italy was like for migrants that went there. They weren't accepted into systems. You know what I mean? Well, me, when I was complaining around, my language and all this stuff as well, people, the way that people treat my grandma or having to interpret and all these different things of growing up very, very quickly, where I'm like, well, why wasn't the system better? Why didn't they think about this? Why didn't they think about this? All the anger like little Titan had, right? Fair enough. I'm speaking and look at someone in the face, but like, we didn't have none of that, bro. You know what I mean? So that was like the first time where my perspective on the world changed around what my place in it was and how bad my situation was, right, within that situation. I became more humble within it to say, like, listen, we're doing good in certain places. That was important for that. The second time I got to leave was New York. And that was very, very recently. And it was when I was a little bit older, like, well, yeah, now, you know what I mean? When I was much older compared to, like, you know, where the stories that we talked about and the age where I was at. And it showed me how similar the world is, right? So the first one was difference, right, in terms of perspective, scale of, like, how big issues are and what problems are. And don't be so dramatic, bro. Like, there's progress that can happen here. You know what I mean? Humble yourself.
Just quickly, how old were you when you traveled to Geneva?
It was like, what, not even long, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
2 years ago. The second time, I went with similarity, right? So I landed in New York. I got love immediately. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, the people I was with are good peoples. You know what I mean? Shout out to Jarrell and the team he's got there at Columbia. I went there to look at programs, right, that might make sense for the context of Australia. Different things that are happening. What could we try, right? Historically over there, like, the communities have gone through what we're going through, but for multiple generations. So what does community resilience and strength look like when done properly? Is there examples of that? What does education access look like? You know what I mean? What does employment for young people look like? How do we actually remunerate young people and give them money that they need to be able to survive and look at that stuff as well? And I found all of that, but that's not necessarily the important thing. That's what I thought I was going there for. The importance was actually getting to spend time with the individuals. You know what I mean? Hear the perspectives of people that have been credible messengers, what we call lived experience in a very, I think, kind of narrow kind of field of what that looks like. But credible messengers are people that had some level of credibility to their experiences and were wanting to do better for the next generation, right? Some people that have been locked up for 20 years, 20 plus. Some people that had been charged with M's, you know what I mean, and has served their entire time for their M and has gotten out and are now in university, right, trying to do better. And the perspective of being able to say, yo, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I just spoke with Broski that's starting this journey, right? I just spoke with a youngin that's locked up for what you just got through and stuff as well. And I was able to hear his concerns and stuff as well and his perspectives and look at that stuff as well. I'm hearing your journey 20 years later, which is what this kid has to go through in terms of their own experiences. Obviously different systems, but similar reasons why you're in this situation. And there's so much similarity of what our experiences are, right? I'm going to the neighborhoods and I got so much love out there, bro. Like, so much love out there. I'm going to neighborhoods, I'm kicking it in the neighborhood, right? And people are like, yo, man, like, you sound the same. Obviously, my accent's different. They think we're British. Kangaroos and all this other stuff that they talk about. But, like, lingo is the same. The politics is the same. Like, I'm hearing people break down, like, politics and stuff as well. And, like, I'm starting to get why, like, there's certain issues in the area and stuff as well. I'm like, this is exactly what's happening in my area, right? Like, word for word in terms of what's going on. They're showing me artists. I'm like, yo, yeah, we've got the same thing. They're saying word for word the same stuff, right? Environmentally, in terms of, like, some of the conditions that people had to go, it's a little bit different in New York, you know what I mean? Because it's institutionally, it's much worse, and welfare systems are different in terms of what that look like. But the actual people that were impacted most by the systems that we're looking at now, right? The people that fell into, like, the hurdles in life that some of us have gone through to different degrees and stuff like that as well, and others have been able to avoid. The conversations around community and community strength, and we need to build, we need to be unified, we need to do things together collectively, right, because of the next generation. All of those things were identical, and the communities that were impacted were identical. You know what I mean? Obviously different histories and stuff like that within that space. but it showed me how similar the world was, right? Where a conversation I just had, I thought New York was so much ahead, and in some places it is, but in a lot of places not, bro. So for me, it was really kind of learning where you've got someone that's a little bit, couple of years, not even a couple of years, hundreds of years, right? But a few steps ahead of us in terms of what we're going through. Either first of all, the consequences, right? So the warning signs around when systems can negatively impact people, right? And what generational experiences within certain institutions can lead to for families, for communities, for all the loss that kind of goes there, right? When this keeps on happening and more young people fall into spaces where they don't get the support that they need, this is a warning sign of what that looks like and how much healing and harm, how much healing has to occur, how much harm has occurred. Can we avoid some of that earlier on so we don't need to go through this, especially if there's other people that are willing to share that information? That's the first thing. The other part was like there's some things that we are doing right? And one of that space I think is that credible messenger space, right? So when you're saying lived experience, I think that's like very, very narrowed into a lived experience of criminal involvement, you know what I mean, of the system. Like you've gone through the court process, you've gone through the custody process, you've experienced this, right? That's not really what makes you credible, you know what I mean? Like it can give you relatability, right? Where it's like I'm speaking from a point of like I know what that goes through, but anyone can kind of do that and then just talk about like glamorize our life and be like, yo, this is what I went through and this is what it is. The credibility, right, isn't limited to just lived experiences of the prison environment. The people I spoke to, that wasn't their story, right? That wasn't their identity. And when you say lived experience, I think sometimes, in my perspective, I'm only speaking for me, it can kind of go, yo, your identity is what you've gone through. Right? That's not who you are anymore, you know what I mean? That's like a couple of years of your life. You got, knock on wood, you know what I mean? Pray to God, like a long life ahead of you where there's so much more in terms of who your identity was. I like the idea of credible messengers, and that's what I kind of heard in New York, where a credible messenger isn't just someone that has a lived experience of the criminal justice system. A person that never got caught up in this stuff and was still doing the same things, right, and got either lucky or like somehow very smart and was able to kind of get through it and have moved on with their life. That's a credible messenger, right? What's the difference in terms of what that looks like? Somebody that's a respected individual that has contributed to that community, has been in the lives of young people, understands the pain that they've gone through, either because their cousins have gone through it, their family members have gone through it, and are doing something about it. So people that are chosen voices, that are trusted voices by young people and by their community, that's a credible messenger. You know what I mean? Our mom, our deacons, all these other people that are giving to community, right, and are there, you know, from a genuine place. That's a credible messenger. These are all things that fall into the same kind of purpose of what we look at the lived experience space kind of looks at, right? But I think there's like a need to kind of move away from just labeling it as lived. And I can't. It's not for me to decide. Everyone else. I'm just talking about my own opinion. But there's so much broader aspects of voices that are in that space. You know what I mean? And there's opportunity for people to grow and move past that title or what that looks like and stuff as well, which is also really good to see. So I saw really good lessons of things that we can learn, pick up from, and adapt into our situations to like have better results, you know what I mean? And better experiences for people. I feel like I'm talking too much as well.
No, because that's valid as well, bro.
That's why I said to you, I said drop it on the potty because it's a gem, you know. I think there's a lot of people that I've witnessed growing up that were credible messengers, you know. That didn't end up, like you said, they just didn't end up getting caught. That was the only difference, you know. And people will listen to them, they respect them, they know what they've been through. And I don't like the idea that we can't hear their voices because they don't fit in that criteria. That being said, of course, lived experience is also, I believe, a valuable component because it's the relatability element, but also it's not the sole. You know, you can't just have that and that now qualifies, you know what I mean? Someone to become a credible messenger. It's an element of different things.
It's
you know?
the message. I think it comes down to the message, you know?
And also your performance. Like, are you demonstrating what you're preaching, you know, about chasing bigger things, you know? And, you know, like, I mean, you can have that relatability, but if you don't want to pursue anything outside of that, further than that, it's a lot harder to connect now, you know, outside of that relatability component, you know what I mean? But it's mad, bro. I wonder how we can see it play out in the landscape of Melbourne, you know?
I think, from my perspective, anybody that would be considered as a credible messenger has gone through an experience, a first-hand experience on the power of change. You get what I mean? Because, like you said before, whether they've, been lucky and have dodged bullets, I don't mean literally, but you know what I mean.
Both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, could be both ways. Is they've experienced, throughout their life, that being in a certain atmosphere with a certain mindset and a certain perspective, and doing the work and doing the labor of transitioning from that atmosphere to a different atmosphere. And that's just not an environmental atmosphere. It's an inner atmosphere. Like for me, that's probably one of the biggest things.
Just on that as well, like you said, lived experience is one thing, but then the credible messenger and what stood out to me was could even be the mother. Someone that hasn't gone to jail, but then suffered. And how did she suffer? Maybe it was her child that, got locked up, or maybe it was her best friend's son, it could be anything.
Which gives her the credibility.
Gives her that credibility to actually to see that pain, in a different way as well, and actually, preach, I
rate that, and I can understand how it broadened your mindset when it came to lived experience, because, like this lived experience thing is kind of new for us.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's been more formalized and professionalized. But yeah, just hearing this from you, Titan, today, it's like, yo, like
I was taking
it was
back
there
to
for me.
to
See,
Leia.
Hey,
like
now you
the
see
gate
what I
was there
told
for
you?
me, but
Yeah,
shit, you
Just the Leia,
he put us on the oval, bro.
Yeah.
And and there's so many different titles for it, and just it doesn't just stop there, which is mad. It goes way deeper than that.
And that's one thing I love as well, and that all happened from you traveling, going and actually experiencing a whole different, environment, different place, and realizing all these similarities, like you
They
mentioned.
say that traveling is the best education, man.
It's hectic,
bro.
Because you get to see,
Exactly, bro. And not only that, like it's like everybody is going through it. Like you said, New York, they're a bit more advanced, but then all that similarities was there as well, And again, like you said, this whole lived experience area I think it's fairly new over here as well, But over there, that credible messenger, it's like I think I was looking at everyone as well. We're all just taken aback by having that little lens open as well, or that different perspective of what it actually means, and and that's what I love about, again, the work that you do down at the VIU. It's that collective effort from everyone, because again, it takes a village, takes a community, and it's all about the community as well. That's the most important thing, Another thing that that really resonated with me was learning from other people's mistakes as well. That's very important with the credible messengers, There's people that have been there, fully done the whole, like you said, the 20 years, and that's not now their identity. That's not their, that's not who they are. They're trying to better themselves, but they have that message for you, And if we all could just learn from people's mistakes, I think that's the people that gets
it's
far.
actually deep, like what you said about, you were banging your head on wood as a lived experience mentor, for example, like based on my experience personally, sometimes, being a lived experience mentor, you find yourself reliving a lot of your past with the work that you do. And that can kind of also be a mental barrier, So there is like the positive part of it where it's like, boom, from your experience, from your mistakes, from banging your head on the wood, you can give game and you can drop gems, But then it also comes with a lot of psychological
risk, bro.
Yeah, you feel what I'm saying? Because you put yourself in a place where you, like I said before, did the labor to get out of.
Returning.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I think that's an aspect of lived experience that, whether I'm saying it right or not, is kind of unhealthy.
Depends on who and how you enter and how you enter.
Yeah, you feel what I'm saying? But now, opening up our mind to credible messengers, it makes way more sense, and it's more right hearing that from you. You know what I'm saying?
And let's keep it real, bro. Like, even in terms of and again, like, I can only speak to my perspectives of what we see, which is why I like to talk to people. You know what I mean, and kind of like get different perspectives, because you're always gonna get a different view of what's. There's experiences I don't have. You know what I mean? I was never locked up, right? Like, I'm close to it, but I can't speak about that in terms of what that pain looks like. You know what I mean? And what those experiences are, right? So there's certain things I can't talk on and stuff as well, but I can definitely like speak to, and that's why I like to get different perspectives on certain things and stuff as well. But if you look in the neighborhood, bro, away from like the world that exists around the service delivery, you know what I mean? Like, services are supposed to respond to certain things, right? And like I said, I was raised in services. I was raised by services. my entire life, from United Nations workers all the way to like people that are trying to do early intervention stuff with me, all the way to like training later on, right, in terms of like support for what that looks like. I've always been raised by services. But like when things got real and when things didn't fit into the molds of what existed around that space, right, the people that had to like hold the reality of what needs to get done is community, right? And there's so many times where away from services, like negotiating something or de-escalating a situation without the training and stuff like that, or before all this work kind of started, the individuals that did that are people that like are credible voices within a neighborhood that has an intention of good. You know what I mean? You have this intention of good. It doesn't mean you're always at a point. You might still be involved in a lifestyle at this point, right? I'm not talking about mentors at all in terms of space, because I think there's a lot of work that goes to being able to say I'm a mentor in a type of way and stuff as well, where that stuff is addressed and you work through that. So it's something that's earned in a really positive way, I think. But there's so many people that fit into that category of credible messengers that have work to do in the space that we're talking about, not from a service delivery point of view, but from a community point of view, because we're a community and they're a part of it. You know what I mean? Especially if they're still involved in a lifestyle. If something happens today in Tani, or something happens today in Melton, or something happens today in whatever side of the city, right? I know there's people that work in the space I can call and be like, yo, this is what's going on. But to keep it 100 with you, there's also people I have to call them. I was like, yo, cuz, you're not working in this space, but you've got influence in this area, right? And I know you're like wanting to see positivity for this. You're not trying to see these youngins get into this situation. You've got influence over here, right? Let's sort this out. And they've helped me sort out so many different situations, you know what I mean? So even just the opening of credible messengers, what I really liked about and shout out to Steph, shout out to Shane, because they've kicked down the door in this space and are doing it really, really well.
Literally, bro.
You know what I mean? Like they're doing beautiful work, right? And they're making sure people are supported well, and they're very thoughtful in terms of the training and the support. So what you're talking about in terms of how you actually care for people, right? Not just jump into this thing where like someone can say they're a mentor and they've had these experiences, but let's actually work with them to see what they care about. Like they care, you know what I mean? So shout out to them. But there's that credible messenger aspect of it. The lived experience space, what I really like about it is provided opportunity, right? For people that have gone through stuff as well and are now like, yo, you know what? Like, I've made mistakes in my life, right? I've got a record within this stuff as well, but I've got a part in my community that I want to play. Maybe not forever, because I've got my own dreams and stuff that I'm working towards, but I care about community, so I want to give back, right? And there's now a way for the system to allow them to be able to do that and support them to upskill and support them to have this second chance, right, in terms of like meaningful employment, you know what I mean, in a space that a lot of people that really care, again, Steph, Shane,
shout out to
can
them.
support that space and stuff as well. But when you expand it in terms of like the idea of credible messenger, right, of the other people that are around that space, there's so many more people that are just like that, right, where I'm like, yo, you need an opportunity too, and I know you want to give back. So to me, the other exciting part of it is how can they start to be involved, right, within that space of let's start thinking about how do you provide opportunity for Bursky that I would call, right, and be like, yo, cuz this guy is warehousing, you know what I mean, stacking up, might have a kid, you know what I mean, it's definitely a real voice in the neighborhood, like when things actually pop off and things need to happen and things need to de-escalate and someone needs to hold it and like calm stuff down or support or identify a youngin that needs support, right, this person does it because they care about their community. How do we start to make sure from a community point of view that we can start to include more people within the overall mission that we have? Because the mission that we have is a better world and a better experiences for all of us, you know what I mean? And the reason we care and the reason we come is it's not that you can't get paid enough to do this stuff, cuz, right? It's like it's heartbreaking things, cuz. Like I talk about the positive stuff, right? I've had my heart broken 1,000,000 times, right? Constantly, cuz. Every time something happens or you get like a really bad outcome for someone, because there's real consequences to this stuff, right? Even
Not easy.
a kid is getting like, bro, these kids are gonna get football numbers potentially in terms of what's going on. That's like a life lost. There's so much years. That's pain. That's like family. That's people that need to be at home, because the Hajj needs that. You know what I mean? Like the little brother needs that. That's a dire consequence for somebody that I hope that they're not. It shouldn't have to be by the time you're 40. Like some of the people that I met in New York that are very, very well spoken, very inspiring people, right? And because of all their experiences, I wish I would have prayed to God that they never had to go through that. And we've got an opportunity to do that over here and stuff as well. So how do we involve more people? That's why I kind of speak about that credible messenger kind of space to get them in.
You know, the only thing that I feel like is though, I love the concept of it, you know, but the only thing I think is that like for such a long time, people who have had custody experience were never ever welcomed at a table, or opinions were never valued, and it was kind of overlooked at because you made the mistake, so we're gonna skip you because we don't want to know how to end up in the mistake. That's the only the one thing that really stands out, you know, because for some credible messengers who didn't go through the system, but at any time you want to step in and you want to involve and you want to help out, you don't have as much barrier. That's why I think there's also a little bit of understanding around it, because, you know, you don't have a barrier to get your working with children's check, you know. You don't have a barrier to if you really want to go out there and spread, you know, some good messaging, there are people who sort of can just do that, you know, provided that there is a space for them and they're able to be welcomed and brought in, you know. That's the only element of it. And 100% I agree with the rest, because, you know, even Shane tells me all the time, it's the fact that people go to prison is the most least interesting part.
Yeah.
It's what is the after part, you know what I mean?
100%. What happened after?
What happened? Yeah,
100%.
so yes, that was what it was. We'll learn from that. We'll relate from that. But from that, now moving forward, what else?
Person.
Yeah, what have you
Yeah.
done since, you know, and what's your level of care?
Like what I was saying earlier, like
Mm.
transitioning from that
From,
atmosphere
yeah,
to that atmosphere.
exactly,
Yeah.
bro. And that's why I always say, I think the answer to some of the problems that we see, bro, is a bit of lived experience. It's a bit of credible messengers. It's a bit of general youth workers, bro, and general social workers and general thing. It's a bit of academic backing as well.
Whole
People
community.
who are educated. Yeah, that's
everyone
going
needs
back
to
to the
play a
meaning
part.
of what it is,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
community approach. But when we say community, I think Andrea said it on the last episode. She said that we can't approach it in silos, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be worried about doing that, and you can't just worry about that. If we keep doing it like that, it's never going to come to a complete
100%.
understanding. It's when people say, you know what, everyone drops everything. Let's come together with understanding with all of those positions. And I think that that's where you find the answer, you know. That's what I found the answer for, like, for example, going back to you. You remember community till this very day. I remember community till this day. You probably,
do.
we
It's
all,
like,
yeah,
it's
you
like
know.
winning a lottery ticket, you know? It's like you can put down money personally to try and get that $10 billion jackpot, for example, you know? But if you go in a group and you all put down, and you all put down together, shit,
First
we
time
break
to
it
talk about the
back.
lottery, well.
We get into the we get into the solution, you know? So we can all eat, bro, you know?
Well,
So that
Don't gamble though.
now that collective kind of reminds me of that, you know? Yeah, no gambling. I'm not encouraging gambling anyway. So, you know, it's haram too, you know what I'm saying? But you get what I mean? It's kind of like an example to that, you know?
Mm.
You get further with more people. man.
100%.
Better
100%.
results.
It's even like that was you know, a different example, but it's kind of like investing, you know? It's like if you get together with a few different people, boom, you guys put money down to get an apartment block.
What are the chances of you guys getting there quicker too?
That's what I'm saying.
More
you know?
accurate. Yeah, that's facts. It's a very good point.
More advice, better advice. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, bro. It's very important.
It's real, bro. We spoke about quite a lot of different topics, bro, you know, and I think there's a lot of things that people can take away and pause and rewatch again and, you know, elaborate further on. But I want to ask you as well, before we come to closing, without revealing too much, yeah, because I do believe that people's goals and visions, to some extent, should be kept until they're brought to real life to avoid the fake dopamine. But what can we expect to see for Titan in the next couple of years? You know, are there things you want to share, like, you know, that we can expect from you or the community can expect?
It's really interesting, bro. I think I'm gonna be in the same space in terms of like the three areas that these are three areas that matter to me. You know what I mean, like none of this stuff it's all things I care about. I'm gonna continue in the community space, right? I want to do more international stuff, right? In terms of connecting different people, different places. I want to like figure out how to do stuff back on the continent. That doesn't mean leaving Melbourne. I don't mean that at all, right? But I think that there's like again, like all our families are all across the world. I've got family in Canada. I got family in Nebraska. You know what I mean? I got family in Kenya. I got family in Sudan and stuff like that as well. We're all growing up at the same type of time. So I think there's a superpower that we're missing in terms of like how we're able to interconnect on a global scale as communities. First of all, as individuals, and then larger as communities. So I want to figure that out. So I think my community stuff will expand. Looks like you have something you want to say.
Now I was just about to say, just that, like, it's very interesting because don't you feel like our parents or like, you know, the grandma, so whoever it is, because they were all, you know, growing up together and all, you know, because of what happened and life happening, they all went to separate places.
Yeah.
I feel like they have that connection. You know, sometimes I look at it as well and I go, they have that connection with, you know, people that are in, like you said, Canada, Nebraska, wherever it is, that's, you know, everywhere. But then
Like a mobile.
if we don't, yeah, exactly. But if we don't, like, you know, keep those ties, we're going to lose it, you know? Like, not if we're actually, like, not staying in touch with the families there, if we're not staying in touch with other people that are similar culture, similar background, similar, you know?
Your cousins.
Your cousins,
First
exactly.
cousins,
Your
you know
first
what I mean?
cousins, exactly,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, living completely different lives. And if we just keep doing this and focusing on, just here, that's why like it was pretty interesting that you said that, because I feel like we are losing that,
And that's our superpower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's what scares me about assimilation. When people talk about assimilation, right? I don't like that. You know what I mean? I think acculturation is cool where you're able to add to stuff and keep your identity and stuff like that as well. But this thing that protected me as a young person and why I keep on saying community is because it's a superpower. When my grandma needs support, when my auntie needs support, when someone else needs support, there's people there.
Community was
You know what I mean? When something happens, when we need to mourn, we're not mourning by ourselves, right? The house is packed, right? There's people there in a genuine way, like we coexist together, right? But we can lose that very, very easily. The same way, it has to be an effort taken to, which is why I'm interested on the international stuff of how we connect with our communities within the diaspora, because that superpower can allow us to do some really, really great things. When you're talking about collective, locally in Melbourne, locally in Australia, the process of people coming together. That doesn't mean that everyone has to believe the same type of thing, right? Or unity doesn't mean that we're all conforming to one single identity. You can have multiple different people, you know what I mean, within that space. But we got to figure out how we work together and how we maintain our relationships, because we're going to get better outcomes. So we're in the process of doing that within Australia, right? Like even just our African Australian identity is going to continue. There's so much more work to do in that space of how our communities work together, you know what I mean? The Somalian uncles, the Ethiopian uncles, the Sudan uncles and stuff as well exist in different worlds. You know what I mean? Me, I'm African Australian, right? So my Somalian brother is my brother in terms of what that looks like. We're the same identity, you know what I mean? Like we might respect ethnic identities, but I don't view us different, you know what I mean, for the people that I grew up with here and stuff as well. That is a superpower moving forward in terms of how we collaborate, how we take care of each other, what identity that we form going forward. But we can lose it.
Easily.
We can lose it very, very easily when we stop caring about each other. When we stop saying, bro, like recently I found, bro, I'm walking around driving to work and stuff as well. It's just DH, it's parking. So I'm back to parking at the station and taking PT, especially now that it's free.
Vibes,
Yeah.
It's good for
Right.
it now.
Yeah.
But
you don't got much time left until it's free, yeah? Until the end
nah,
of this month.
we'll see what happens. But what I've noticed, fam, I'm running into Africans and they're not saying what's up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, what's
Everyone
going on?
head down, yeah?
Yeah, I'm staring at people. They're like, they probably think I'm a weirdo. I'm waiting for him to look at me in the eye. So I'm like, it's not happening no more, right? And the conflict stuff that's going on, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but even the conflict stuff within our own kind of stuff, and there's so much politics behind it, right? And I'm not going to disrespect what that politics looks like because there's complex stuff behind it, right? But all of this beef that we have with each other as cousins, as families, as communities, right? It risks us losing the stuff as well as the assimilation aspect of it, where there's beautiful parts of Australia, right? And we're all Australian, in terms of growing up here, right? There's beautiful parts of that, but there's also beautiful things that we can keep around how we form our identity and move past just ethnic-based identity to a larger identity that needs to be developed. When you've got your kids, when they're running through community, right? How are they going to view themselves? Right? Are they going to think, yo, I'm specifically this, I'm specifically that? Or I don't want this part of myself, you know what I mean? I don't want to bring my cultural food to school.
Too much segregation, yeah.
Yeah, I want little plastics, you know what I mean? Cheese things, right? And all this stuff as well. Or are they going to be able to go, yo, man, I've got this really rich culture, ethnically, right? In terms of what that looks like. And I've got this really rich culture that was developed and intentionally developed by our generation, because we're at that point now of how we work together, how we collaborate. So that when we're the uncles, which is basically now, you know
It's
what I
not
mean?
far, bro.
It's not this thing where it's separate worlds. It's where we're collectively dealing with stuff. And then can we do that on an international level? And then the other two spaces in terms of what you said was around, I still want to continue in the art space, whatever that looks like in terms of expression, always. And I want to better figure out, just developing myself around how well I can do things. You know what I mean? Being more intentional, being more consistent with stuff as well. Learning more about the different roles, maybe experiencing other parts of the government, other parts of the service sector. How much skill set can I develop, and how useful can it be? So those are the three areas. I think that how that looks like, we're open to what that looks like. But it will always be those three areas, fam.
That's cold, man.
Hectic, bro.
Advice before you go?
Absolutely hectic.
If you had someone, my brother, who wants to be impactful like yourself, wants to be a voice to represent other people, and maybe let's say he's 13, 14 years old, and maybe in a similar situation, so freshly off the porch, still getting involved in a bit of this and a bit of that, but it's still at a point where they can turn it around before they have to, you know, get a record and find themselves in a situation. What's one solid piece of advice you can pass on to someone that might be watching?
Think about it. I don't want to just say. I'm gonna jump to community, but I've already spoken about that. I'd say try things, bro.
Yeah.
Like experience. I say try things. There's gonna be a lot of BS programs. There's gonna be a lot of stuff where I'm like, oh, this is not space for me, or whatever that looks like. But the more things that you try, right, and you might not, you don't know what you're interested in yet. You know what I mean? And you're gonna meet more people. Your network's gonna develop. You're not gonna only be thinking in terms of like the way that your surrounding tells you to think. You're gonna be able to factor in how different people think, right? Different jobs, different experiences, different parts of Melbourne, nature, sport, STEMs, you know what I mean? Like the sciences and all that stuff as well in that space. Try everything. If you don't like it, cool. Don't go to that.
At least you know
Volunteer
you don't like
things, bro.
At least you know that you don't like it. Yeah.
Try things, bro. Don't lock yourself up to like one place, one local area, one experience, one friendship group. You know what I mean? Like be open to experiencing things, and people that allow you to experience things and want to encourage you to experience things. Hold on to those people, bro. They're gonna be able to open up your eyes to, regardless of where you're coming from. We all come from different circumstances, different households. You know what I mean? We all come from different pain. You know what I mean? In terms of what that looks like. But regardless of what that is, the future that you have, right, is in Australia, is very, very open to how you want to develop it. Network as much as possible. Try as many things as possible and figure out what you like. And the things that you don't like, still meet people. Because in the future, all of those people, again, will form community and will allow you to do really, really cool stuff and then put on for the next generation as well, I'd say.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Titan right here, man.
Expensive game for free.
100%.
Sorry for talking so much as
No,
well.
what are you
like,
talking about, man?
It's
This is what
always
we're
a
here
pleasure,
for.
bro.
Yeah.
And you know, we have been in talks about, you know, making the podcast happen, but you know, in the right time, God works in His own time, you know. So it's been a pleasure for having you on the potty, brother. For those of you who, you know, I hope you don't mind if they want to connect with you further, we'll put all his socials at the bottom. Send a message, give him a follow, show him some love. And yeah, I don't think it'll be the last time we have these conversations on camera,
man,
bro.
trying to be around.
Yeah, long
100%,
time.
bro.
Stamina, bro.
100%.
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan and Tapped In is now tapping out.
Peace.
Yeah.
Love.